Hey, welcome back to Fresh Gaming News. So today we have had something from Eurogamer, which is talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, and it says the final specs is announced and stuff. Let's look at it and see what they say. So, Digital Foundry have released some specs that, quote unquote, are from Nintendo. We don't even know if they're from Nintendo or not, but let's just say they are from Nintendo, because that's what they're saying. They probably are. I don't see why they wouldn't be, considering they usually are right about this, and they're saying that Nintendo gave them the details, so, and it's pretty much the exact same as what the rumored specs are, so it makes sense. But anyway, let's go over it and see what it says. So first of all, the CPU has 8 ARM Cortex A78C cores, which is what the rumors said from like 2 years ago, so that makes sense. The clock speed though is fucking weird and shit, and I don't know why. So for the docked mode, it's 988 megahertz, but for handheld mode, it's 1101 megahertz. Why the hell is it lower in docked mode than it is in handheld mode? Nobody knows. Some people are saying it's because of the memory bandwidth being lower, and that's like to like compensate for it. But I really don't understand how that's going to compensate for it, considering memory bandwidth is more for graphics than CPU stuff. So I don't understand what the hell that's about. Also, if it can do 1100 megahertz in mobile mode, why the hell can't it do that in docked mode, considering there's no power limit on docked? The only reason I can think about is it like can't do the actual like power of it can't do the higher GPU clocks and the higher CPU clocks. But I find that hard to believe, considering the power limit on the Switch 2 is like 40 watts and it's using 10 watts in handheld. So there's no way it's using more than like 20 watts in docked mode right now. So there's no way it's getting overheated. I just think like they're just limiting it because they don't need to use it more than they actually are. But whatever. Anyway, as for like the actual cores used in games, there's only 6 available for developers, with 2 being used for the operating system. One more than the original Switch. This is probably due to the fact that you need like more background tasks due to that game stream stuff. But what I want to know is why they can't like make that optional and like have some games be able to use all the cores, or like 7 of them, and just have one for background, because who the hell cares about this game streaming shit anyway? It looks awful. It runs at like 5 FPS. It like isn't great, and also Discord exists, and I just rather use that instead. Why does anyone want to use this GIMP service that sucks? And you can only use it with friends. You can't like play with random people, so it kind of defeats the whole purpose anyway. But yeah, why 2 cores? Especially considering later on you see it's even worse in terms of the memory. But anyway, other than that, Ampere architecture, we knew that already. It's from 2021. The chip was actually credited in 2021, so it's actually like 4 years old. Compared to the Tegra X1 chip was 2 years old when it came out, because it was announced in 2015. And it came out in 2017 on the Switch, so it's actually significantly older now than it was for the Switch 1. It has 1536 cores, which is a lot more than 256, but due to the fact that each core is doubled in terms of floating point calculations, that means it's actually half in reality if you compare it to the original. So I don't know how much times that is. Something like it's about 5 times greater. I'm not 100% sure. You'd have to calculate that. Don't know. Don't really care. It is what it is. Anyway, as for GPU clocks, I'm very, very disappointed in this, because as you see here, it's 561 megahertz mobile, but then only like 1 gigahertz docked, which is about like 75% more compared to like the original, which this is not right. It does not go up to 460 megahertz for most games. It usually is like 300 to 400, which is like half of the docked speed, but which is a lot more than the Switch 2's difference, isn't it? You should have like at least twice the resolution and power. So I would thought like, oh, the dock mode would be better this time because they have 2 fans and stuff, and it's also using 40 watts max. But no, it's actually worse. And it's stupid because most games are now going to be running at like 1440p instead of 4K. And we could easily do better than this, but because it's saying here that it's up to 1.4 gigahertz, which is a lot lower than what this was compared to this. You could max on the Switch 1 was 921, And you could easily do that if you have a modded Switch. You could easily get here without overheating it at all. It ran perfectly. But they decided to lock it to 760A. But that's still a significantly less big increase compared to this, which is like 40 fucking percent, which is outrageously massive. I don't know why they've limited it so much. If it ran at like 1.4 gigahertz, it would probably run games at 4K much more frequently, and it would mean that you wouldn't have to upscale at all, or at least not as much. And instead of most games being run at 1440p, which kind of sucks because most TVs are not that resolution, it means you'll have to upscale it to 4K. And also, it would mean games run at a much farther frame rate. So, like, if you wanted to play a game at 120 FPS, you wouldn't have FPS drops. But yeah, hopefully there's like an update that lets, or like they let third-party devs run at like higher than this dock speed. But I don't know, they never did that for the Switch 1, so we'll have to maybe wait for it to be modded, and then we can get the full power. But as we know with the Switch, it's kind of hard to mod without the RCM thing, so... Anyway, as for memory, it's 128-bit. It says here LPDDR5, but the actual memory itself is LPDDR5X, and it runs at 8500 mega transfers per second. But they are downclocking it massively from 8500 to 6400 for some reason. So it's now 102 gigabytes per second docked. And even more in mobile, it's only 68 gigabyte per second mobile, which is like 70% of that, kind of, pretty much 70%. So yeah, I wonder how that's going to work, because like the frame rate is the biggest contributor to memory bandwidth, and unless they're like playing games at like 60 or 30 FPS, I don't see how they're going to be able to play games at 120 FPS in like Metroid Prime 4 with this memory bandwidth. That doesn't seem possible. So maybe some games will be only 120 FPS on docked and not in mobile. I'm not sure. But anyway, as for the actual amount of memory you have in the Switch 2, it's only 9 gigabytes. They're using 3 gigabytes for the OS, which is ridiculous considering the original only used was 0.8. And this is probably also to do with the whole game sharing shit that we have to deal with now. It would be nice if they let you do it optional, make it like use game developers let you do just 1 gigabyte or something like the original Switch, just let you use the basic stuff from the original Switch so we have more memory. But I don't know, that's what they're saying right now. It's only 3 gigabyte. You only have 9 gigabyte available, which is kind of shit. So yeah, that's pretty much everything it is to say. Everything they know. They hasn't said really anything about the actual like power of the Switch itself, like how much watts it uses or like how much the battery is. We're just assuming it's about 20 watt hours battery. We know it's about 2-hour battery life, so we can assume that the battery like wattage on the handheld is 10 watts or something. But yeah, considering the chip is downclocked massively in docked mode, and it's also a chip from 2021, it is very, very, very underpowered. And it's only using Ampere technology. And it's using, as from the leak the other day, where somebody actually looked at the chip, it was saying it was using 10 nanometer process, which is a process from 2016, which was before the original freaking Switch came out. So they're using technology dating back before the original Switch even released. So yeah, and the fact that they're releasing it at 50% more cost than the original. What the fuck is going on with this system? I hope it sells badly and they fucking have a price drop, because there is no way that this is pro anything. It's just so freaking outrageously greedy. I bet this system, the price it costs to make it, is probably like $200 to $300. There's no way it costs more than like $200. Like, if the original Switch was made like 2 years after the system came out, and that was like $200, $150 to make, there's no way this, which is like 4 years old, there's no way this costs like more than $200 to produce and manufacture and everything. So yeah, they should charge $300 at most for this shit. There's no way they should be charging $450, $500 for this. Especially in the UK where it's like £400. It's like absolutely ridiculous. And I don't even talk about the cache. It only has like 4 megabyte of cache, which is very low, considering most CPUs now have like 32 megabyte. What the hell? How are they going to cope with that? At least the memory bandwidth is pretty decent. Like originally it was like 25 GB, now it's 100 GB. So hopefully that's less of a bottleneck, because a lot of Switch games did have a problem with the memory bandwidth. And another thing about that is the actual boost mode. We don't know if games are going to be boosted on the Switch 2 when you're like playing with back compat or whatever. I know it's going to be like translated layers and stuff like Proton and stuff, but I'm not sure if it's going to be like any better like clock speeds or whatever, if it's going to be the same clock speeds. But yeah, anyway, that's going to do it for Fresh Gaming News. What do you think about these specs? Are you excited about the Switch 2, or you think this is crap like I think it is? Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and see you guys next time in the next Fresh Gaming News. Bye-bye.